I'm Marie Spratland Hess-Carl, and I'm the library director at the Burlington Public Library. And I want to welcome everyone here tonight for Meet the Candidates, a chance to talk to the first selectmen candidates and the Board of Selectmen candidates. I want to thank the candidates for being here, and Tom Monahan, he's our retired NBC political reporter at NBC, and our friends at the Burlington Library Association, also known as the Friends, for sponsoring this, and also Nutmeg TV, which is filming you right at this moment. That will be on Wednesday at 5 p.m. on Channel 5 and on Comcast Channel 99. And there will be an on-demand link posted on Facebook and our website, the library, as soon as I get it, which means you'll be able to get this program through your computer. I wanted to update you on our wonderful library expansion. It's going very well. It should be done in about a month or so. We're waiting on furniture and a couple of the rooms to be finished. So far, the children's room is done and the teen room, and we have a new section called the middle school section. And when people walk into the library, they say, wow, what a great library. They love it. So we're looking forward to it all be done. Also, many of you gave us money for the building expansion. And if you gave us $50 or $100, there's an opportunity to sign our board, which will be hung in the new community room. So if you haven't had a chance if you've done that, given us money, and you haven't signed your name on the board, it would be great if you came to the library and did that. All right, here's the ground rules for tonight's event. Everyone, the candidates and the audience, we hope and expect you to be polite and be civil. The candidates will each have 2 minutes time limit to talk about what is important to them or why they're running for the selectman's position. And then Diana, who is behind me, will be our timer, and she'll say start, 1 minute, and then stop. So when you're in the middle of your sentence, you can finish the sentence, but if you'd stop, that would be great. After that, I will introduce Tom Monahan, and he will be asking the first question, and then we'll have a Q&A from the audience. And one of my board members, Kevin Mullen, and I will have a microphone, and we'll go around, and you raise your hand, and we'll send you the microphone so you can ask the question. All right, so I would like to introduce Tom Monahan. I think you've done this for us for about 4 years, so we appreciate his time in doing this. Thank you.
Marie, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the ovation. Haven't had one of those probably ever. All right, here's what we're going to do. First of all, we'll introduce each of the candidates. They will stand up. Then I'll move down to the next one. After we get through with that, each one will have 2 minutes to speak about whatever they want. And then we'll get into a question from myself, after which we will throw it open to the audience. So to begin, on my immediate left is a candidate for first selectman, and that would be the incumbent, of course, Ted Schaefer. Thank you. The Republican candidate, David Bereza. Candidates for the Board of Selectmen, David Gashtigian. David's a Democrat. Republican, Doug DiPaolo. Democrat, Carl Salcedo. The Republican candidate, Cheryl Byrne, was not able to make it tonight, so it's unfortunate that she will not be here, but obviously something came up that she had to deal with. The Democratic candidate, Tom Zabel. and the Republican candidate, James Chard. All right, each candidate should have a couple of minutes to talk about whatever they want, and we'll begin with Mr. Schaefer.
Great. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate that you have again offered to serve as our moderator for this Meet the Candidates Forum. You have been very supportive of our public library throughout the years. I also want to acknowledge the public library staff, the board of directors, and the friends of the library for all their efforts in organizing this informative event. They have also been very busy, as you heard earlier from Marie, with the library expansion construction project, and we look forward to the grand opening next month. I want to thank Burlington residents, those in the audience, and those watching on Nutmeg TV and Facebook Live for allowing me the honor of serving as your first selectman for the past 6 years. I truly appreciate your support and the trust you have in me. I am also grateful that Laura was by my side every day during my tenure. She and the kids have been so encouraging as I have headed out to evening meetings and then out to community events on the weekends. They understand how much I care about this town and value the opportunity to work hard for its success. What I value so much about Burlington is its history, the rustic charm, the many seasonal community events, open space, the wide range of recreation, warm friendships, and the values we share. My 3 children have been raised in Burlington and educated in the Region 10 schools. Before being elected as your first selectman, I served 4 terms on the Burlington Board of Selectmen. Before that, I was chairman of the town's Economic Development Commission, a member of the Conservation Commission, the Historical Society, the Farmington Valley YMCA Board of Advisors, and I was a Burlington Junior Soccer Association coach for 7 years. I obtained an undergraduate business degree from Tulane University, a Master of Business Administration from Alliant University, and a graduate certificate in public financial management from UConn. Thank you.
Republican candidate, David Bereza.
Hello. First, I would like to thank the library staff for coordinating this event, Lewis and Mills for hosting us, and Tom for moderating. I further would like to thank all of our citizens for taking time out of their schedule to come and listen to our visions for our town. My name is David Bereza. It's been a decade since I came before you to ask for your support. The difference between now and then are many more gray hairs and much more experience. Thank God for just for Menjel. I probably served as a planning and zoning commissioner and a board of selectmen. During the years of serving these boards, I've built much bipartisan support to make this town where it is today. My family has been residents for much over 100 years, and we call this great town our home. My great uncle, George J. Pavlik, former first selectman of Burlington, has inspired members of our family to get involved in public service. On a professional level, I've worked and had experiences in various positions in the healthcare and property and casualty industry, working with high-level executives on an international scale. Over the past few months, I've traversed our town and met our residents, and you've told me your concerns, from taxes to the lack of businesses in town to the impact of childish political games at the state. Your concerns have been heard. At the state level, they will be acted upon. I'm running because being out of shape isn't healthy, and Burlington is currently out of shape. I'm running because our town's economy has not grown, but shrunk. We have fewer businesses today than we did 6 years ago, and we're on the verge of a financial crisis at the state level, and this will affect our town's tax base. I'm stepping up to the plate to take on these challenges. We will create a great and beautiful, vibrant town center, and we'll preserve our rural, rustic, and historic character. Thank you. Sorry.
Candidates for the Board of Selectmen, Democrat David Gostigian.
My name is Dave Gostigian, and I'm asking for your support on November 7th. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in South Windsor and received a biology degree from UConn. After working as an EMT for 6 years, I went to Quinnipiac Law School and moved in with my wife and her family in Bristol. Following law school, I was hired as an attorney for the Connecticut Judicial Branch. My wife and I looked at the surrounding towns, and we found that Burlington was perfect for us. We've been in town for 3 years. We love the small town feel here and all that Burlington has to offer. My children attend Lake Garda and Harbor. My daughter goes to Foot Road Summer Camp. And my kids play for BJSA. And last spring, I was an assistant coach for my son's T-ball team. My family has had a great time at the Johnny Cake Mountain Music Festival last summer. We enjoy using the town's open spaces. I run at the Rails to Trails every weekend, and my kids love riding their bikes there. We're very happy in Burlington, and I am seeking a position on the Board of Selectmen to help make this amazing town even better. I've always enjoyed serving others and giving back to my community, which led me to volunteer for the town's ordinance committee, on which I served as the secretary for the past 2 years. We reviewed, updated, and organized the town's ordinances. I worked closely with the first selectman, Ted, and got to know many of our other town officials and residents. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen because I want to continue serving Burlington. My background as a lawyer can help assist the selectmen with decision-making and managing our litigation costs. As the only candidate for Board of Selectmen with school-age children, I'll ensure that we balance the town's needs with those of Region 10. I want to continue preserving our open spaces and recreational areas, while at the same time partnering with private businesses to develop the town center. I'm looking forward to your questions tonight and to your support on November 7th. Thanks.
Democratic candidate for the Board of Selectmen, Carl Salcedo.
My name is Dr.
Dennis.
Carl Salcedo. It's been an honor for me to represent Burlington on the Board of Selectmen since 2013. I'm running again to help ensure that our quality of life in Burlington is preserved and the development is proactively planned to conserve the natural beauty of our community. As a BOS member over the past 4 years, I've worked cooperatively across the aisle in a respectful and efficient manner. This has helped to ensure that Burlington functions in a professional yet effective way. I engage in many issues that impact the current quality of life and the future well-being of our town. These include my support for our excellent local schools and the purchase of land for open space for future town development. Challenges will continue into the future and will require the experience and insight that I've gained by serving you for the past 4 years. My wife Beth and I moved to town in 1977. Burlington's a great family community. Our children, Carlos and Elizabeth, grew up here benefiting from all that Burlington offered. Carlos has a PhD. My daughter Liz is an attorney. Their start in our public schools nurtured their success. Within our household, this demonstrated the importance of strong public schools and their ability to produce good citizens. In my view, it's important to support our schools as places of educational distinction. For the past 42 years, my academic and professional background is concerned with sustainability of natural resources. I bring this along with the practical experience of working with students, homeowners, municipalities, associations, and the Connecticut green industries to Burlington. I also have firsthand knowledge of the challenges of running a small business. For 20 years, I ran a successful landscape business, and for the past 6 years, I've been the owner and operator of the Salcedo Family Farm, a small production farm specializing in the production of garlic. I strongly believe in constructively working with others to advance the solutions that continue to make our town a great place to live in. I want to foster the spirit and cooperation and goodwill as becoming our trademark. We may not agree on everything. If we work on common cause together, so much more can be accomplished. I'm asking for your vote to serve Burlington.
Okay, as we indicated before, Cheryl Byrne, the Republican candidate, is not here. Tom Zabel, the Democrat.
Hey, excuse me, how about me? We need to let Doug speak. Doug DePaul?
Go ahead, Doug. Tom Zabel, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doug.
All right.
I'll let you speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan, I think.
I don't know.
Go for it.
Thank you all for showing up tonight to this event. Yes, my name is Douglas DePaula. I am asking for your vote on November 7th for the board. Locally, I have been for years the RTC chairman here in town, and I'm very glad to say that our membership has grown over those years. We just had a very nice, successful event at the tavern. I've also been a commissioner on planning and zoning in the past. After I graduated Georgetown Med School, most of my professional life was spent in New Jersey as a cardiothoracic surgeon. While a physician in New Jersey, I had the privilege of working for the Department of Health and Human Services, where I had a large role in constructing standardized care for stroke patients. I was also appointed by Governor Christie and confirmed by the New Jersey State Senate to a commission that had oversight authority for millions of dollars to families in New Jersey that had sick children. Surgery was taken off the table for me by a car accident now about 15 years ago, and I transitioned into law. I graduated Rutgers Law School in 2006, and I opened my own consulting firm where I traveled across the country to procure medical experts for mass tort defense work. I have had a lot of leadership positions in my life, and I am hoping that you would elect me and the other members of our slate to help Burlington be led into the future in these ever more challenging financial times. Thank you.
Okay, Doug DiPaolo, the Republican. My apologies. Tom Zabel, Democrat.
Good evening. Born and educated in Burlington, raised in Wiggville, I believe I have a unique perspective as we have grown from a small rural town to a vibrant residential community. These changes have brought about challenges in our town, which has always wished to maintain our rural roots and values by transitioning to an active residential community responsive to the needs of our residents. As a member of Planning and Zoning and a previous member of Inland Wetlands in the Zoning Board of Appeals, I have been exposed to the balance necessary to weigh the development of our town against maintaining our core values. I believe that our local government needs to retain its fiscal prudence in these times of uncertainty from our state government. We must continue to provide the educational system for our children, which has been a cornerstone of our community, work with Region 10 and our neighboring town of Harwinton to solve the burden the lack of state financial support has imposed upon us. The board must continue the diligence it has established under the leadership of our current First Selectman, Ted Schaefer,
1 minute.
to provide fiscal restraint required in these trying times. The town has taken advantage of opportunities and continues to look forward to provide additional life-enhancing resources to our citizens. In order to develop these resources, we should look to private-public joint ventures which could assist in the development. With a strong belief in the lifestyle and respect for the community values, as part of the board, we need to assure that the values and character of our town are maintained, while continuing to provide the residents with the growth contiguous with our history. We should always be looking forward to the future without forgetting our past. Thank you.
Republican James Chard.
Start.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Marie and the library staff for organizing this event, and Tom Monahan for offering his services as moderator. For those who don't know me, my name is Jim Chard. I prefer Jim to James. And I've been serving on the Board of Selectmen since 1997. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 years since I started. I'm a lifelong resident, having grown up in Wiggville as well, which has gotten a fair amount of attention recently due to the efforts of the Wiggville Preservation Group. By the way, they're having an event at the Grange this weekend, 10 to 2, the Harvest Festival, just for purposes of being totally forthright. They didn't put me up to it, was my idea. I currently reside at East Chippens Hill Road with my wife for 35 years, Cheryl. Our children, Ashley and Derek, are no longer living in state, but have clearly benefited from growing up
1 minute.
in the Burlington community. I graduated from the University of Connecticut in 1982 with a bachelor's degree and joined my family's Burlington-based mechanical contracting firm. My motivation for running, again, honestly has not changed since 1992. I believe it is important to give back to the community that shaped and enhanced my entire life. I wish to maintain the rural character of our town, which I've had the privilege to enjoy all these years. I believe we need to strike a balance between the needs of the community and the ability to meet our financial obligations with the least impact to the taxpayer. This is a balancing act with challenges I am willing to face on your behalf to ensure we all continue enjoying the quality of life that is Burlington. Thank you.
All right, each of the candidates will respond to this one question that I have. And then after that, we will go to the Q&A from our audience. We all know about the state budget problem in Hartford. As we speak, there is still no resolution of that particular issue. And there can be no question that it will impact cities and towns large and small across the state of Connecticut. So the question would be, and we can start with Ted Schaefer, the question would be, how will the state budget impact Burlington if cuts are made? And what is, I think, very, very important, if the cuts go into effect and you do not get what you need, how will the city be run? How will you handle that?
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Start.
So we can make financial assumptions, but without an approved state budget, it is challenging to determine what the exact effects on the taxpayers will be. So Burlington is starting off that process by being in very good financial standing. I recently guided Burlington to its strongest ever municipal credit rating of AA+. Our current budget contains a 1% reduction in taxes for town operations outside of education. The town operations has been on a spending a freeze for the past 6 months. So I'm committed to working collaboratively with the Region 10 and Harwinton through the duration of this budget crisis and beyond. By statute, Region 10 and the towns are separate legal entities with separate finances, but we will support each other. We'll support our residents, we'll support our children. The financial goals will be to maintain the core town services in Region 10 education operations. Currently, 75% of tax dollars go to support Region 10, and the remaining go to town services. I will continue to work hard to balance the needs of the community with increasing fiscal challenges at the state and local level by maintaining cost-saving measures while providing quality core services. Capital projects will be deferred as appropriate. My established regional working relationships will further yield cost-sharing partnerships and grant opportunities. Economic development initiatives will continue building off the master plan from the Village Planning and Development Committee work we started 3 years ago. Thank you.
Republican candidate for First Selectman, David Bereza.
Start.
If the state budget doesn't get passed, we'll stay focused on keeping Burlington strong and making sure we fight for our voice at the state capitol. I'll work with John Piscopo and other state leaders to get a fair budget passed and take Burlington's best interests into consideration. We'll make sure that essential services are provided and our town is run properly. I will work with the Board of Finance to review our budget and make sure all of our departments and services have the funds necessary to provide for our citizens. I will work with the Board of Finance to find ways to save money and make sure our town's needs are met in the future and frivolous spending is eliminated. I will focus on growing our business tax base, so we'll have not to worry about depending upon the state for funding. This funding will not be there in the future. Overall, we need smart growth to make Burlington prosperous again. Thank you.
Now the candidates for the Board of Selectmen, Democrat David Gashtijan.
Start.
Thanks, Tom. I think it's obviously a very important question at this time, how the state budget is going to impact Burlington as a town. And I agree with Ted that without any specific numbers, it's hard to plan. So the first step is actually getting those numbers from the state. But beyond that, I think the Board of Selectmen needs to work together with the Board of Finance and Region 10 to collaborate and find that balance between supporting Region 10, which is important for maintaining, our property values, which are certainly dependent on the quality of the education that our children receive here, and making sure the next generation of Burlington residents are well educated and capable of going out there and getting good jobs. So I think collaboration is important. I like how Region 10 has taken affirmative steps and anticipated these cuts and put a 3-tier plan into place already to try to save money. I think that's the right thing to do, is we need to keep looking forward. We need to plan for this type of being fiscally conservative in light of what's been going on with the state budget, because there's no hints that this is going to be just a one-year thing. It's going to go on for a while. So I think collaboration with Region 10, with the Board of Finance, in order to balance the needs of the town with the needs of our children as well. Thanks.
Republican Doug DiPaolo.
Start.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Unlike those who have gone before me, I did not know this question was coming and therefore do not have a planned response. With that said, the state contribution to our educational fund is about 17% or so, to my understanding, of the entire budget. So with a 40-some-odd million dollar school budget, you can see the numbers get pretty large. I know the high school has already made middle management decisions to cut back on some personnel, and usually that's where the first cuts are to be made, since the most important level for our children is the teacher-pupil relationship, and that should be protected at all costs. But this is in a vacuum, and all of this collaboration speech is no doubt important, but I don't think that that's really what you came here to hear. Obviously, we're all going to try to get along with everyone. My issue is that the school, even in these challenging times, still does not have a financial budget. No projections for what's going to happen with the roof at Lake Garda or the high school in 3 years or 5 years. I would think that, especially in financially trying times, one would need to budget like you budget your household. The school needs to budget. That's what's been lacking, and that's what I'm going to push for on the town level as well as in the Region 10 level. Thank you.
Democrat Carl Salcedo.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. The state budget will impact Burlington in a number of ways, as you have heard tonight. I attended the BOE meeting October 2nd, and according to Alan Beitman, it will affect us in the range of $1 to $7 million of some sort. So far, the governor's not passed the budget, and we're, Region 10 with 84 other school districts are in this conundrum also. We were zeroed out of 1.6 million that we were supposed to get October 2nd. So presently, we don't know how far this is going to go, and I say that with some trepidation. To address the $1.6 million cut, I think Region 10 has done a good job already. They've initiated a Tier 1 plan by reducing supplies, reorganization, administrative staff to teach, and reducing line items to over $600,000 in personal reduction. So they're attempting to stay away from cutting teaching and learning activities. I say this with some hesitancy. According to the University of Connecticut Economic a study group, which I'm a faculty member at UConn, this malaise is going to continue for 6 more years. And that's because Connecticut has a real budget problem due to unfunded mandated liabilities. Sales tax has really been down, and 3 of our largest taxpayers from Greenwich left the state a few years ago. That's one of the reasons this state should have a ton of money, but we don't. So I don't think it's going to get much better for a while. So I think what you're seeing now is just the beginning of what is going to continue. And the Board of Selectmen needs to work with the Board of Finance to find some type of compromise. Thank you.
Tom Zabel, Democrat.
Thank you, Tom. Part of this tax base that we're really concerned about in town has to do with development. I've already started, as part of the Planning and Zoning Board, to have discussions with several private entities on development of certain areas in town. These are all very preliminary, nothing has been put forward. But I think what we need to do as a board is work with these private developers and find some way to support them to help develop these areas in town to increase our tax base. One of the things I'm most concerned about as far as the state budget goes is the car tax, which they're looking at removing. That is going to have a huge effect on our town, as it is a big tax base for us. If that becomes a reality, somewhere along the line, those tax dollars have to be made up, and I'm not sure how we're going to do that. One of the good things that have happened is Burlington has not been downgraded as a town on the fiscal end of it. We are one of few towns that have not been slated to be downgraded. Region 10, though, has been put on a watch to potentially be downgraded from a school system. We are not downgraded at this particular point, but may be. So we have to be very careful on how we look and how we go forward with them. I'm also of the opinion that, yes, I think we all have to be on a bipartisan support for any action that is taken, and it has to be in the best interest of our residents, whatever has to be done.
Jim Chard, Republican.
Thank you, Tom. I'm very glad, and I give accolades to our Board of Finance, because I'm going through their meeting minutes from September special meeting. I see that they took a preemptive move and allocated roughly $780,000 from unspent monies in the previous budget to offset some of the possibly anticipated cuts from the state. We will typically lose our low-SIP local capital improvement funds and our town aid to roads. I think they've done a good job in trying to offset some of the capital expenditures and some of the potential road expenditures. So from just exclusive of the Region 10's budget, I think we've made a good move. We have less of an impact. But when we get to Region 10, it's a whole different story. The governor's proposal gave us roughly $4 million in 2017 and $0 in 2018. So we were going to take a cut of roughly $4 million. I think when these types of things happen, you have to wait to see what the bottom line is from the state, but then we have to get all our heads together. The Board of Finance from Harrington, Board of Finance from Burlington, the Boards of Selectmen, and really try to think outside the box to come up with some solutions. One thing is reserve funds. Now, Burlington maintains roughly about a 13% reserve fund of its total budget. Region 10 does that as well, and I believe Harrington may do that as well. But Harrington and Burlington are obligated to fund Region 10. I think the question needs to be asked and answered if there's any legal way to use some of the Region 10 reserve funds to offset cuts from the state. It's a possibility. It's a little thought out of the box. Whether it's legal or not, I'll leave that up to the experts, but it's something we should consider, and that's never really been addressed or considered. Thank you.
We have for the next hour the opportunity to hear from you. You may direct your question to any of the candidates, and each of the candidates will have also a chance to respond, even if that person has not been given the question. So there may be a topic that everybody wants to comment on. There may be just one topic that just one person would like to comment on. So let's begin with a Q&A, and this gentleman right here.
It's on. Hi, my name is Gary Nixa. My question was what each candidate thinks the biggest opportunity is for Burlington and how they're going to help achieve that opportunity.
Okay, who would like to respond? Ted?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Gary. That's a very good question. So we've been talking about a lot of doom and gloom tonight, but let's talk about opportunities. One of the opportunities that Burlington has is in the area of economic development. This town, the townspeople, landowners, stakeholders, families have gotten together. We did this about 4 or 5 years ago and developed a master plan of development. It was with a Village Plan and Development Commission. We met for close to 1.5 years, 2 years. We worked with an architect, and there was a lot of good things that came out of that. So over the years since then, when you start with a master plan, the most essential part of that is your infrastructure. You have to develop your infrastructure to be ready for development that will come through. So we finished off the water lines that were in place and needed to be continued.
1 minute.
We also accepted Library Lane as a town road. We also worked out a bartering deal with O&G Industries at the end of Library Lane because we didn't have access to the back there. O&G owned the access back there. So we did a bartering deal in which we gained an acre from them, which combined with 2 other acres that Burlington owned to the left. So now we have 3 acres to work with. And we also worked very hard with the Economic Development Commission, our residents, and our marketing committee. And there's been a lot of efforts. We came very close to having a food market, which has shown in the last 4 surveys we've done of the townspeople, it's the #1 thing. So some things are out of our control. So That deal did not go through. It was out of our control because of the financing. But a lot of things are in our control. So let's keep on working on those things. Let's keep a positive attitude. Let's reach out, and hopefully some good things will happen, and it'll grow the commercial tax base.
David Bereza,
Well, thank
the
you.
opportunities for Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Nixa, for that question. Definitely, business is the needed variable that we need. Without business, our taxes will go up very, very high, by maybe 3 to 6 mils in the next 3 to 5 years. With that being said, we do have to partner with different businesses, chambers of commerce in varying cities and towns nearby. We have to make sure that we understand the needs of our citizens too. Many of us go to West Hartford and all these other areas because we just don't have the food venue that's differentiated. If a teen wants to go to have ice cream or yogurt with their family, they have to go to West Hartford Center. But there's no plan in place that I have vision that's going to be as big as West Hartford Center, of course, but we need those specialty shops on Library Lane or close by, so we do have a sidewalk going to somewhere. We're going to extend the sidewalk up to the Commons. We're going to make businesses in Library Lane. I'm going to partner with Dwight Harris and many other business leaders to make sure these business arrangements do get finalized. Further, business growth is one of the top priorities for this town. Thank you.
Candidates for the Board of Selectmen, David?
Well, although we go to the Frozen Gnome for ice cream, I do agree with the first two responses that economic development is the most important thing for Burlington. But aside from that, I think we need to keep this as a town that's attractive for new residents and young families. I think a lot of community events like Tavern Day, like the Johnny Cake Mountain Music Festival, my daughter went to the Monster Bash last weekend, things that make people excited about Burlington. And in addition to those community events, open spaces, Rails to Trails, developing the Johnny Cake Mountain Project is a great way to keep people excited about Burlington, interested in our town, and coming to Burlington. Thanks. Great question.
Doug DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. I guess I look at our town and go, why are we different? We've been saying this economic development thing for quite a while, and as David pointed out in his opening speech, we have less business today than we did years ago. Everybody talks a good game, but why don't we? In towns situated in Connecticut that are 10,000 and less, Burlington is in the top half to 1/3 of the most expensive mill rate towns. We have very beautiful areas of Burlington, which are to be preserved and cherished. The question becomes, the EDC, which is a purely volunteer organization, to my knowledge, if a business wants to develop and then all of a sudden they don't develop, like the grocery store, no one goes out and says, hey guys, why didn't you end up coming here? The EDC, to my knowledge, has never reported back to the Board of Selectmen, ever. So my thought is to, instead of spending money, for instance, on a planning commission for the Johnny Cake Mountain purchase, why don't we spend the money on a professional business development corporation for a year, for 18 months, for 2 years? Let's see where that brings us. This way we can have a reason why businesses, large and small, may not be coming to Burlington. Actions, I think, speak a lot louder than we should do something. Thank you.
Carl Salcedo.
I concur with a lot of the things that have been said before me, and I really don't want to hash them over. I will leave economic development to people that are much smarter than me. I serve on the Village Planning Committee. I think we've got a lot of good people in this town. But I'd like to make a comment that you can't measure value in dollars only. I certainly have not done that my whole life. I would advocate that Burlington is just such a great place to live. The reason I moved here was because of its rural character. 80 square miles with not a lot of people when I moved in. It was like 3,200 people. We're up to 9,500 people now. I place a high value on my surroundings, and that's what I think we should market Burlington as. a green community. If I'm reelected, I want to make sure that we certify this community to go a little more green than we're doing right now. So not everything can be measured in dollars and cents. When I see a pileated woodpecker or a bald eagle, I get off on that. When I see mushrooms in the woods that I can eat, I get off on that. My neighbor, John Miller, often says to me, I don't give a rat's ass if we have a grocery store in this town. I moved here for certain reasons, and that's because the town is beautiful, it's rural, and it's a great place to live. So I want you to think about that. Thank you.
Tom Zabel.
As I mentioned previously, I've actually been in discussions with some people about doing some development in town. A lot of that stuff is extremely preliminary, and so it's not really worth discussing at the moment, but it would take some effort on the town's part to assist and make those things happen. It would be best for the town if we looked at those in a positive fashion to see if we could increase our tax base based on some of these developments. I think when it comes to the Johnny Cake Farm, the residents have spoken on that issue and look to do some development there, but I think there are some opportunities to do some private development along those lines that could potentially assist in doing some development there, which will not cost the town the kind of money it would cost to do it all on our own. I think those are the things that we have to also look at to see if there are some situations which we could get into to help us develop those so we enhance the activities that we can for our residents. I think part of that, and I agree with Carl, I mean, the reason I like living here and have lived here for the majority of my life has been the rural nature of the town. And I think we need to preserve that no matter what we do, and that should be the overriding value that we look at in any kind of development in town.
Jim Chard.
Thank you, Tom. I concur with economic development as one of the key opportunities. Our commercial base is almost non-existent. We need to boost our bottom line through trying to develop that. I would also be open to try to figure out why we have not been successful in the past. If it means professional help, then that's what it should mean. I think that is one of the biggest opportunities for us. We have to keep this town as the gem that it is, because with a flat growth rate in our town, we're just not going to cut it. We need to make this attractive to people, both residentially and commercially. So I think we have two things going on here, and we have to balance them. Everyone wants the rural feel, and we definitely don't want over-commercialization. We need to be, and maybe that's been part of the issue with the inability to attract certain businesses. They don't necessarily want to make the commitments to keeping the rural feel that the residents would like to see. But I hope that it's just like the budget items. We have to try to think out of the box, get multiple heads is better than one. We need to communicate and get our heads together and see what is that issue, because that clearly is the biggest opportunity for us.
Nobody mentioned a casino. Next question. Yep, gentleman in the back.
Hi, I'm Ray Sikora, and I've got a question, but let me just give you a little quick background. I grew up in a neighboring Farmington Valley town quite a number of years ago, and over time, that town was probably in the sort of I'll say the population and sort of demographics and commercialized area that Burlington has been over the last 20 years. Over time, that town grew, a lot of commercialization, and with commercialization, maybe taxes become lower, but then you also have a lot of other things that occur with more traffic, more crowding, and so on. Burlington, having moved here 25 years ago, has changed a little bit. I think it's got a few more businesses, and I think probably Jim Chard we could argue and say how many there were in 1992 and how many there are now and what's the increase, but it's not real significant. However, I look at Burlington, and you sort of alluded to this, as Burlington is a nice balance for my family. It was a great opportunity for my kids to grow up and get on and have their careers. And I look at the balance also as a trade-off. Taxes are higher than in some towns of our size. However, we don't have that commercialization. We don't have that traffic that's running through Route 4 in the center of town all hours of the day, and the other, I'll say, issues and concerns that come along with commercialization. I want to direct my question specifically to Ted Schaefer and Dave Berenza. Ted, because you've been on the Board of Selectmen for quite a number of years, you've heard a lot of citizens talk about what they think Burlington should look like in the next 5 to 10 years. And Dave, I know you've been canvassing the town for your election for, or running for first selectman. I'd like to get your views of what you hear the townsfolk saying about where they would like to see Burlington in 5 or 10 years, and what's their view for the balance and the trade-off of higher taxes versus more commercialization, maybe lower taxes, but then leaving that rural environment to more of a, I'll say, a suburban feel. Thanks.
Okay.
Good, Ted.
Thanks, Ray. So what residents have been telling me, and I've been hearing at all the different meetings, is we've been saying a lot tonight, the balance. They're looking for this balance that you described. So hearing that, from my position, we try to lead initiatives that try to satisfy those. So over the last couple of years, we've looked at open space, and we had a successful open space purchase on Tame Mountain. And I think that was very well received by all parts of the town. And even though it took some land off the tax roll, it was low-paying tax land. And it gave people what they're looking for, and I think that's quality of life. I think that's what you're describing, Ray. And so those are pieces of the puzzle. The other thing that I'm hearing from folks is that we highly regard our educational system. So there's been a lot of focus on our education system. There's been a lot of support.
1 minute.
And what I hear from people as I walk around town and in the meetings is some folks say that they've contributed towards the educational system, and now they're retired and living on fixed incomes, but they love Burlington. They love everything that Burlington has to offer. So I think we should take a look at more balancing. I know our elderly commission has looked at a couple of further tax rebates on top of the elderly taxation rebate we have now. And our finance board will take a look at that at this juncture. So we have that. We've talked a lot about economic development. One thing that I've been looking at also through the years is studying our transportation corridor on Route 4, bringing in engineers from Connecticut DOT. We've gotten a little bit larger. Some of our intersections, such as Barnes Hill, Covey Road on Route 4, and some of the turn lanes need some attention. We've had that study, and we're trying to work with Connecticut DOT, again, to try to increase the quality of life for everyone.
David.
Thank you for the question, Ray. There's a lot of concern throughout the town regarding our taxes, and many people who are retired, they want to stay in Burlington, but they are very concerned about the taxes, and they want to see more of a sense of community. And that all leads back to having a town center, having more festivals for our town, bringing our kids together, bringing everybody together in our community. If I had to say one thing, it's really taxes and working with other communities to really find solutions to our issue. Thank you.
Another question? Go ahead, sir.
Is it on? Tony DiNicola, Chair of the Board of Finance in town. Dave, I'm just a little confused. You've been on the Board of Selectmen for 4 years. What are the ideas you come up with in the last 4 years that you can bring forward to help lower this tax base? There's no magic. We're all talking about taxes and what's going on at the state. Right now, if we don't get any money from the state, we'll be down $5 million. We have about 1.2 covered by Region 10. The other 400,000 is in Harrington. But where's the magic? It's not like this hasn't been talked about before. It doesn't happen overnight. And by the way, those sidewalks you talk about, they were paid for by the state, most of it. And we put in for more grants for more sidewalks. When we get those grants, we'll extend the sidewalks. So that way we don't burden everybody with additional taxes to pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Tony. That's definitely a very, very good question. At the end of Library Lane, we have 2 acres down there, and many people have known it, ONG gravelled that space. So I'm thinking that we could build a beautiful, big, multi-purpose barn that we could have community events, co-ops, farmers markets. The school can have events there, fundraisers for the fire station, and we could also rent it out for bar mitzvahs and church events as well, as long as people have insurance to host events there. After a while, that will create the need to come to the town center, it'll bring people together, and we can also get the required spaces so we can have the light built at the end of a library lane. And currently, to get the state to pay for that light at the intersection of Library Lane and Spielman Highway, we do need 100 spaces. So that will bring in the influx of people. We can have more festivals, more community events, and people can rent out that space as well. And I believe starting there and working with community leaders who own different pieces of land, driving that need. Don't forget that more than 50% of our population is aging. We need to reach out to make sure we're attracting the proper businesses to tend to the needs of those aging population individuals. Thank you for the question.
Anybody else want to comment on the panel? Ted?
Thanks, Tom. I just wanted to kind of address Tony's question. You know, what have we been doing in the last 6 years to try to make things affordable here in town? So what you do is you look at your operations. So my office has looked at all our vendor agreements. We renegotiated those, which has led to cost savings. We are looking at an LED lighting replacement cost saving initiative, which will save money for the taxpayers in the future, and it's also a sustainable initiative. I looked through all our cell tower agreements. So some things are not cost saving, some things are revenue generating, and I was able to work with those companies, and now we're creating more monthly revenue towards town operations. As a community, we looked at Solarize Burlington, and that was a program from the state, from the Green Bank, to help you get installation into your homes and try to cut your electricity bills. So I think there's hard and fast things that we can be doing. We've worked on these things. These things have been effective, and we need to keep on doing that moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have just a brief answer. I read recently that Canton and Collinsville, as a way of spurring development, was offering certain tax incentives for businesses. So that way, in the short term, it would attract them there, but in the long term, the town would reap the tax benefits. So I think that might be a possibility of a way to attract some new businesses to town that might initially be hesitant.
And actually, we did that with the grocery store.
Okay.
But they just decided that they wanted no part of this.
I don't think that the tax incentives was the deal breaker in that case.
No, you're right. But that route has been tried.
And it looks like successfully in other towns. So it's a means of spurring development, something that I think could benefit the town.
Sir, you had a question.
My name is Jerry Romanians. I have a question for Mr. Bereza. Now that it's 2017, what are you going to do about enlightening the board members, the residents, the taxpayers about what's going on in our town? Or do you plan on keeping everyone in the dark like it has been in the past?
Thank you for the question, Jerry. Going forward, when elected, I will make sure that all meetings, commission meetings, board meetings, will be televised on Nutmeg TV, and they will be saved on a database in the town as well. We'll also make sure that we have different other avenues where people can see these meetings, and we're going to also give out packets before the meetings so people can review. I've been on 2 boards already, and we get a packet of 10 different issues at one time, and we have to make decisions within 5 minutes. So that's a huge issue. I'm going to make sure that all packets get distributed to our commission members within 1 week or so if the information is available. Make sure we can make the most appropriate decisions in time. Thank you.
Good. Ted, go ahead.
So I think we need to, we started a dialogue tonight. I was listening to David's answer, and I think we're entering a cost containment mode. So David mentions signing up with Nutmeg TV. There's a cost associated with that. There's a monthly cost. And when you sign up for that, you have storage. You have to store all the tapes. So that means you have to assign it to a town employee. In small towns, our employees wear several different hats. So you're going to be asking someone to take on more responsibility for storage. We have other modes of learning about what's happening in the town. We spend money on our town website. There's a lot of information on there. So people just need to engage. There's information there if you're looking for it. If you need help with that, you can just contact our offices. We'll help you find the information you're looking for. Newspapers are unfortunately not doing very well. So we do have the Valley Press. They do publish an article from time to time. We try to encourage them to do that. So the other things that are happening, we have a senior newsletter. We have, we have community events where people are getting together. There are booths, people are sharing information. So there are things out there. We also have an emergency management communication system that has a non-emergency function where you can learn about this. It's on the front of our town website on our homepage. You just need to sign up for that. And so that's another opportunity if we all engage in that a little bit more. There could be more opportunities to get you non-emergency information. In some of our meetings, people have asked for the old-fashioned, what we call a blue card. We've sent mailers out. We do that from time to time. So there are many different modes of communication, and so we hope you can take advantage of those.
Can I just add something?
Go ahead.
I also like to create a town blog. So if you go on our town's website, put in your thoughts, your concerns, recommendations to change whatever in town. It could be from economic development to there's a pothole in front of my house. I'll go through it personally. And I think that's a great way, and I can set up that myself. I know how to do that technology-wise. And also, let's notify members via email and text message of upcoming meetings. We have the technology, let's use it. People are busy, people travel internationally, I get it. I do that too. I have to miss meetings sometimes, it happens. So let's use technology to our best ability.
Equal time, go ahead.
So this will just be short. So the town has an email system that notifies board and commission members of their meetings and sends them information. So we do have something in place. I think we just have to be a little wary, we have to be a little careful that we try to take advantage of the communication things we have. We can try to add some things, but let's not add to the cost to the taxpayers of adding on everything under the sun in terms of what's available in technology.
Any other candidates would like to respond? Negative?
I'd like to just say, I've been at this a long time, and this subject has come up numerous times. I think the best solution for transparency is engagement from the community. I look around tonight, and I applaud you for being here. Want to be informed about what's going on in town. I would love to see more attendance at our selectmen meetings, especially at our town meetings when we pass the budget. I've been there when budget has been passed by 25 people. Engagement, I think maybe we have to focus on how do we get that engagement, because that is critical to succeeding in getting the word out and getting people to make informed decisions, not only us, but you as the voting public. So that's the only comment I have about that.
Tom, I really agree with Jim, but I was president of the Burlington Historical Society for 4 years, and I did learn a few things about Burlington. One is that we really don't have a town center. Burlington is really a bunch of boroughs that are separated by distance, and that's the historical problem about Burlington. The tram ended in Unionville. It never came to Burlington, to this town, so we've been isolated always. The average suburban dweller, according to data, stays in place for 4 years. So how can you even think about developing a sense of place and a sense of community when people just don't stay in place? Burlington may be the exception. I've been here for 40 years. I thought I was going to stay here for a year or two. It's just a great place. So again, we've got some historical things that we have to kind of overcome, like volunteerism is down, and it's really good to see you all here tonight. And I echo what Jim says. Board of Selectmen meetings not well attended. Please come and voice your opinions. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This gentleman here.
Good evening.
Oh.
My name's John Hebert. I'm chairman on the Conservation Commission in Burlington. I'm also a current member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and am running for another shot at planning and zoning. I applaud all of you for being up here and spending your time, your quality time, and being able to assist the town in your endeavors. I would tell you that I've heard many of you speak tonight and stand for preservation of open space and agricultural lands in our town. I'd like to address both Ted and David with a question, and that is, where do you stand on a recent decision that was made by the Planning and Zoning Commission that would have allowed 25 apartment units to be put on 5.6 acres, and that was denied unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to jump in here. This is actually for David and I, and he may not be privy to this, but that decision, there was a unanimous decision by our planning and zoning not to accept that particular application that John is speaking of. And just a few days ago, the developer filed suit on that particular matter. So I don't think it would be appropriate for David and I to comment on something that would be in pending litigation.
How about if we make an overall comment regarding our thoughts about comparing building residential units inside of economic zoned areas? Would that be something you would be interested in our response, John? Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let David go. I just, in my position, I might be involved in participating in this litigation. This is being taped tonight, so any comments that I say could be used by the lawyers on different sides. So David's presented a hypothetical. I'll let him.
It's a hypothetical not related to that whatsoever. Anything zoned business in Burlington, in my belief, I think it should be for business, because we don't have much business zoned area, and that's where the future tax revenue is going to come for educational system and for our town. So I'll just leave it as that, and that's my answer. Thank you.
This gentleman here.
Hi, my name is Peter Chmalian, and I'm a newcomer to town. I've only been here 39 years. Well, compared with some folks, I'm a newcomer. I have a couple of questions based on things that I'm hearing, and I would appreciate folks commenting. Number one, my sense about the economic development seems to be focused on retail. What about professional business, not necessarily manufacturing, although small manufacturing might be considered? Two, how do we get the school board to stop raising the budget 3% every year? That's been going on since I've been in this town. How do we stop? Enough. Really. The niche study that looked at the schools around found that sports at Lewis Mills got an A, and academics got an A-. What's wrong with that? I could go on.
Okay.
I don't want to monopolize.
Thanks. Who would like to respond? David?
I'll go first. That's a great question. We have to review our industrial zoned areas. We have to consider all things are on the plate, but we have to really keep Burlington a small community with the smaller shops, smaller restaurants, but we really have to review if we could put anything like a small distribution center or anything like that, but that's something that I don't support at this time, but something that the future board and I will review, definitely. And regarding the education, we do have to work with the Board of Education to make a more stringent budget. And we do have to have transparency for sure, because we cannot let the Board of Education go do their thing, because their thing is hurting us. It's going to hurt us in the future, and they're going to keep going up exponentially, and then we have to make sure the staffing needs are where we need them in the future. We have to review overall everything to make sure we are in agreement, because I believe that if the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, two executive bodies of our government don't have a say or collaborate with Board of Education, I don't think it's fair to our residents, because it's your taxes that will be going up. Thank you.
May I respond? And I'm sorry, I missed your first name. Peter. Peter, I think your question circles back to a couple of my major points. Number one, I think if we're going to develop Burlington business-wise at all, and I will divert my thought, I don't think anybody really thinks that Collinsville does not have a community feel to it. So I think that the balance of people that love this town and stay here 39 years, you know, God bless you. I haven't quite been here quite that long, but I understand the love of the town. But I do understand also that money well spent on a professional economic development consulting firm is money well spent. To your other point about the school budget, I think it goes without saying that the school goes up 3% a year, even though our population has gone down 3% a year. And that's what I can't figure out. If it doesn't pass the sniff test to me, it raises a red flag to me. So I would think that $0 budgeting for the school board is something that we have to look into. But again, to my point before, you don't have a financial plan for the school board for District 10 at all. Everything is kind of haphazard. Do we have the money for this? Let's develop a plan for 5 years, for 3 years, for 7 years. Pick a year span and develop a plan that allows the residents of this town to know exactly if $1 million is required for the Lake Garter roof in 2021, we are budgeting for that in our expenditures. I think that goes a long way to getting a hold of why things go up 3% a year.
Part of the I guess, issue that we've been dealing with is all the time I've really been in town and been on the boards I've been on, I have never really seen an industrial entity really come forward to want to build something in town. I mean, Tidy had built a small facility in the center of town in that industrial zone, which was great. There is still land available there. The other ends of town have land available, and it would be nice if there was some development. I would not want to see any type of distribution because the infrastructure that we have in town couldn't allow for trucking to come and go in this town without a major impact on the roadways, and we just don't have that kind of access. I think that would not be the type of development I would want to see. If we could, no, I agree if we could. I would love to see, because they're popping up all over the place, these medical care facilities. I mean, they're all over town, or all over other towns. I would think that if we could draw one of those, the Hartford Hospital, one of the Connecticut General, somebody like that, to have one of those facilities in town that would not only benefit from a tax base, it would also benefit the townspeople that you have quality care on a close basis.
I'll defer to Jim.
Yep. I would just make 2 points. I would say to you, the commercial business that you mentioned, all of the above. If it's done in the right way, I will agree with Tom that distribution infrastructure wouldn't be a good fit. The answer to the Region 10, I go right back to engagement, because I've seen that $39 million budget pass 300 and something to 200 and something. I mean, we need the best way, and I've sat on the Board of Selectmen long enough to know that if 50 people are in the audience, you pay a heck of a lot more attention than when there's 2 people in the audience. And it runs along the lines. So if you make the noise, the board will respond. They will have to be held accountable. If you turn down the budget, they will have to come back, and they will have to take another good look at it.
1 minute.
And that is the kind of action, really, when it comes to budgeting, that we need to see at the regional level, because we haven't seen that in a number of years. We have seen it very little in the past, but we have seen it. So I would just circle right back around to engagement.
Sure. I think one of the things that hasn't been mentioned tonight is kind of one of our largest opportunities here in Burlington, and that's our home-based businesses. We have over 400 home-based businesses here in town, and so what we need to do is try to encourage them in terms of growth, getting them this entrepreneurial spirit, getting them out of their homes into professional office spaces. I think that's a great opportunity. The other thing that we haven't talked about is we do have some light manufacturing here in town. It's right across from the post office, and that's Crescent Manufacturing. They've been here. They have a very successful business. They hire a lot of people from Burlington as residents, and so people can make a good living from that. They've also expanded. I think there's been a lot over the 6 years that I've seen of small businesses that are expanding. They're doing construction, and that offers jobs to contractors. Another area that I've seen some growth in is in the area of restaurants.
1 minute.
You know, we've had some reconversion of the Casil's restaurant into an Asian fusion, if that's your thing. And also the Greenhouse Cafe has done some expansion. So I think there's some more opportunities in that area. So the other thing I wanted to mention is in my regional meetings for economic development in the Northwest corner, there are now 500 jobs available in light manufacturing across the Northwest corner. So there is some, they're just not being filled. There needs to be more work with our high schools in the area and in the region to get those folks interested in taking these type of jobs. So I think these are some areas that we could explore. Thanks, Pete.
Go ahead, David, real quick.
Just to go off of that idea, we also need to look at possibly partnering with senior centers in neighboring towns to expand their facilities here in Burlington, because they're not going to cause trouble. The aging population that do need these. The aging population do want to stay in Burlington. They need somewhere to live, and they don't want to go to Bristol. They really want to stay here because their family's here and they're raising their kids here, their grandkids. So we have to look at that. And also, it's a win-win situation. We're going to get tax revenue from that too. And also, we can't avoid expansion. There will be more residents built in our residential zones. How about if we look at having 55-plus communities built too, because they won't have the children in those communities, and they will be paying taxes as well. So just to go on to that, kind of the tax revenue generating topic, but thank you.
This gentleman here had a question.
My wife and I have lived here for 20 years. This is the first time we've been at Lewis Mills School. But every time we get our tax bill, we have a lively discussion at home as the school population decreases and the taxes go up. We have a second discussion at home when we look at where the graduates go to college. We're not impressed. We don't see Yale, we don't see Harvard, we don't see Amherst, we don't see MIT, we don't see Middlebury, we don't see Sarah Lawrence. We grew up in a small town. We grew up in Bennington, Vermont, a town of 10,000 people. In an English class of 1,400, we had Tufts, Williams, MIT, to Middlebury, and I say, what's going on? What kind of teachers do we have in the system that we're not seeing a larger proportion for these tax dollars going to what we would regard as significant institutions of higher learning, many of which have needs-blind admissions policies, where they have sufficient endowments that kids accepted can go. Don't tell me parents can't afford it. These institutions make it available. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I just kind of support what you're saying. I think one of the dynamics that I once brought up at a Region 10 meeting is this whole thing about enrollments going down, but the cost going up. And the question is, it's confusing because some of the demographics in Burlington indicate that there's a lot of young families moving into town. Like our population continues to grow, so how does enrollment? One of the things that was talked about is that Connecticut contains, many private schools. So there's a certain segment that are going to private schools, and also very popular is the homeschooling. So that may begin to try to understand what's going on with this enrollment. The other thing that I've noticed about enrollment, having been here for 20 years, is that it's cyclical. So while you have some downturns, I've been paying attention to the kindergarten enrollment, and it's really shooting up both in Harwinton and in Burlington. So you're asking a lot of great questions. The only other thing thinking about, I have a son that's at the University of Connecticut at Storrs, and one thing that I noticed about his application process is there was a lot of competition. He was a good student here, had a lot going. There seems to be a lot of international students that are coming to the United States and competing for those spots. So I'm not an education expert, but I think it's an important discussion, so thanks.
David?
Oh, great. Excellent question. I think as far as the taxes for Region 10, I think they hear us loud and clear this year, especially with no budget from the state, that it can't continue at this rate. And I think we do need to have a discussion with them, with Region 10, and say, the town is not gonna approve another referendum with a 3% increase in your budget. It's just not gonna happen. I think that writing's on the wall. As far as the caliber of schools that you see graduates attend, I think there's a lot of factors at play there. Many of them, I know UConn likes to attract in-state students who graduate at the top of their class. I know I got a scholarship to UConn when I was an undergrad. I got into some Ivy League schools that I could have attended, but especially at this time when it's so financially hard to attend some of those higher caliber schools, I guess, people make the choice that they don't want to take on that type of debt this young in their life, and they decide to stay in-state at UConn.
Doug?
I was going to comment, and I'm almost sorry that I raised my hand. Yeah, I think that all the things that were said are absolutely true, but they don't answer your question. So let me try to answer your question. I, too, had the discussion with Lisa at our home, because I now substitute teach at the high school. Figuring I like to give back, I like the interaction of the students, yada, yada. But when I saw the graduation class of the last couple of years and where they attended, we had the discussion that I don't know why there aren't more higher-powered schools coming out of our high school. So then, why then, with a budget of 40 million plus, are we 44th in the state for high schools? I don't have an answer for you there. But I think part of the issue is that people are electing to go to less expensive state schools for 2 years and then kind of up their game. But that issue is not isolated to Burlington, that's across the board. So therefore, why are we not seeing the MITs, the Harvards of the world, the Yales of the world sucking our students into their universities? I don't have a great answer for you. I don't think anybody here does. And what I've heard is kind of diffusionary talk about what the process is for attending college, but I don't know that that answers your question. I mean, did you feel satisfied that your question was answered up here? So. And that was my take on it too. So I must admit I don't really have a great answer for you, but I have the same questions, and I will tell you that I represent a slate of candidates that want to get answers for questions like you have.
Oh boy, now we got a lot of hands. Young lady in the block.
Tom, could I add on to that?
No, we got to get more questions. We got a lot of people raising hands. A lot of the information you want to get out there, you can put in your recap.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Lowry. I'm a proud 2010 LSM alum and also a graduate of Smith College, and I'm currently enrolled in Simmons College. So, and I definitely know that this school system really prepared me to succeed at both schools. But my question was, there's been talk tonight about development and new development in town, which sounds great, but I personally have a hard time getting behind some of that when I see some of the buildings that are in town that have sat vacant for years. So I guess I would like to hear ideas and either what's being done or plans on what could be done to try to get businesses like the new restaurant in Casillas. I was so happy to see that building finally being used after being closed for so long. So how do we, in addition to anything else that we plan, how do we use the space we already have?
So,
All right, Ted.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what I've kind of noticed with certain buildings around town is that there's kind of a shuffle that takes place. You have certain buildings that are vacant or they just come into use or being renovated, and a building that is in one area moves to that location, and now you have an empty spot. So I think we have a very good, one of the organizations that I think is doing a good job, and they're really hoping to do a really good job, is our Chamber of Commerce. And so they have, we work together, I worked with them, and now they have a dual membership with both the northwestern part of Connecticut, and also with the Farmington-Bristol area. So I think it's a good opportunity to try to get some reuse into these areas. I think we rely a lot on the pride of the property owners we try to encourage them to keep their places looking good. And so hopefully with all these initiatives and some good efforts, we're hoping that these few storefronts will get filled.
This lady right here. You, yeah.
Hi, Jennifer Parsons. My question is, given that we've talked a lot about Region 10 tonight, and given that it is a biggest draw on our taxes, but also probably our biggest industry and our most important, our children, if you were elected, I'd like to hear from everybody, what steps would you take to educate yourself on the workings of Region 10 operations and budget to be able to speak from a place of knowledge?
I guess maybe we'll go down.
Right down the line.
Right down the line. Thanks, Jen. So one thing that I would encourage everybody, and I think Jim said it best earlier tonight, is folks should come out to try to make some of the meetings so that you can learn. The meetings are lengthy, but they're full of a lot of information and opportunities for people to ask questions. So before we get into, so far into the budget season that things are becoming solidified, I would recommend folks to do that. I tend to go to the meetings, as many as I can make. I also, there's a Board of Education member that works in my office, so I'm often asking Ellie if there's things that I should know and I should understand. So, but I think getting engaged. Also, there's things online. Region 10 does put things online, a lot of documents, and I think people should take a look at those.
I think definitely attending those meetings, and also in the future the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance having more involvement. It's definitely brought to light this budget season with the state of Connecticut's issues. And also using technology to our fullest extent to also have a blog where that blog could be used for residents to do town issues, but also we can discuss as a town what your thoughts are on the education system. And if you think you're paying too many taxes and the children aren't going to those universities that you think they should be going with an education system with such a budget, you can voice your concerns there, and we can bring that before the board and we can discuss options, because the solutions best reached are bringing everybody together and considering every single individual and not creating any controversy or fight amongst each other. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I have children in Region 10. I've been to Board of Education meetings before. They are very good online. When they post their agenda, they have lots of supporting documentation of the things that they're going to discuss that night. I would continue to review those documents and attend those meetings. And as I said before, I think we do need a dialogue between Region 10, the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance. So we're all on the same page with trying to balance the town's needs with the needs of Region 10 as well.
I'm going to answer your question, and then I'm going to ask you a question, if you don't mind. When I was as chairman of the RTC, part of our meetings, because we had members in the RTC that were part of Board of Finance, Board of Ed, we'd have a update information process that these people, without giving away any information that went into executive sessions, they would tell us what the issues were. So I felt it kept the board informed. But did I misinterpret your question? I thought embedded in your question was the fact that, to your opinion, are people commenting on an informed basis, or are they not?
I think there are a lot of factors that go into running a school system with hospitality and policy that needs to be considered, and some of the costs are unavoidable. And I just want to make sure that as an informed voter, I'm making a decision who I'm voting for based on people who have taken time to really understand the workings
Sure, I
of
understand.
the school system
Okay.
and sort of the parameters that the state puts on spending within a school system.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, there are certain costs that are definitely fixed costs, unavoidable costs. Most of them are personnel costs because that's who interacts with our children. I guess from an informative point of view, and I be honest with you, I don't know if this ever has happened before, but just like as chairman of the RTC, as a board member of the Board of Selectmen, I would encourage routine reports from both Board of Ed and Board of Finance to the Board of Selectmen so that everybody's on the same page and we know where the problem areas are, where the areas are that we have to stay away from because there's nothing that we can actually do about that. So information is definitely key, and I think that people talking to each other between those three boards is the cornerstone of getting to someone that is informed, that can deal with your issues the best.
We only have a few minutes left. Sir.
Well, you can get to answer the question.
Tom, can we go digress
Well,
back to
I
that
know,
quickly?
but so many hands are up.
Yeah, but we didn't go down the line here.
All right, go ahead. 30 seconds.
Okay, 10, the meetings I got on Alan Beitman's mailing list, and a comment to the gentleman that's been here for 20 years, don't be dazzled by elite institutions. Most of the best research in the United States is done at land-grant universities like University of Connecticut. My kids went to elite institutions, NYU and Smith, and I'm the only family member that has tenure at a land-grant university. So don't be dazzled by elite institutions.
I believe not only do you need to talk to the Board of Education, I think you need to talk to the teachers, the people that are on the front lines when it comes to what their issues are, and make sure that we as individuals understand what they're going through and what they have to deal with and what their needs are in order to make an effective decision on what goes on with the Board of Education. I think we do need to attend those meetings. I attended the last meeting because it was a major meeting that was talking about the budget and the reductions. I think that's something that we need to always be informed of and therefore be able to make decisions based on that information.
I think you have to go the extra step. If you can't make the meeting, you go online, and I will applaud them on their budget in that they start off at 10,000 feet and they zero right down to the line items. I would encourage people, not because they're a volunteer board just as we are, our time is precious, especially when it gets to budget. Come having read the document with specific questions, with knowledge of the document. The worst thing in the world is to come in and just make a blanket statement that is not based on facts and it isn't productive at all. So I think that's myself as a selectman, as an individual voter, and I would encourage people to engage, like I've said, but be informed.
Okay, you and then this young lady, and then I'll wrap it up. Yeah.
My name is Tom Worley, and I've lived in the town for 39 years, and my children have gone to Lake Garda and also to Lewis Mills. I serve on the Solid Waste Committee and Recycling Committee in the town for 15 years. My question is, what can we do about make it so the school buses don't come so darn early? They come up my street at 6:30 in the morning, so the children must have to get up at 5:30. And I think that's utterly ridiculous. I think they should have to come to school at least an hour, if not 2 hours later. And the next part of this is that I'd like to know what can be done to reduce those transportation costs also. Like if the school started at the same time, maybe they could pick up the young children as well as the old children on the same street. So I didn't have to listen to the bus beep, 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 back up every morning, twice.
Okay.
And I'd like to also know what can be done. Ted mentioned what he did about solarizing Burlington. I'd like to know what can be done about having personal windmills.
Well, you can get all that in 30 seconds.
I'm just going to make a brief comment. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for serving all those years. Tom is actually a professor of art, I believe. He was all those years, so thank you. So I'm just going to mention one thing. I've been sitting on a statewide board, Burlington. I was just voted on to a formal board. It's called Sustainable Connecticut. So if you Google that, Sustainable Connecticut, and type in ECSU, Eastern Connecticut State University, it is a program that has a large menu. It does include all types of sustainable energy. So I invite you all to take a look at that. There could be opportunities for Burlington to participate in these type of programs, all types of programs. But this could be a program. There are some energy credits that might be available that might make it affordable for some households.
Excuse me. Well, that's a good question. To cut down on the noise, I would say let's look at maybe hybrid technology in buses. You never know. It sounds kind of funny at first, but we could definitely explore that if it's available. We can also look to see what we could do about the routes by working with Region 10 to see where we can cut down, but we have to really sit down with the paperwork to see where we can merge routes and put that all together and make sure we're most efficient in the routes of our buses. But thank you for the question.
Okay, question here, way in the back.
Hi, my name is Nicole. So I as well have grown up in Burlington. I went through the Region 10 school system. This question that I'm about to ask is something that is very personal to me, and I think that a lot of people would also probably agree as well. So what types of programs will you implicate in town to prevent drug use? And how will you better promote existing programs like Safe Harbor to the kids that really need that type of service and to the parents in town who don't know that that service exists for their kids that may be struggling? This has been a problem since I've been going to high school. I mean, since I graduated in 2012, and I've known many kids that have passed away from drug overdose. This is a problem that's in Region 10. And many would chalk it up, if you talk to my friends, with the lack of things to do here in town. Tavern Day not being the greatest activity for 18, 19, 20-year-olds. So I guess we'll just start there with that question for whoever would like to answer it first.
I think we definitely have a huge problem. I'm not going to be politically correct. When I was canvassing the town, people told me heroin is the biggest problem in this town, and it's hidden. And we have to go after the drug dealers. I'm going to give our police force the needed resources, whether it be locally or federally, and if I have to get the FBI involved, to find the drug dealers and they will be stopped. Our kids will no longer be hurt. We'll make sure DARE programs also are implemented in Harbor and the high school here as well, because when I went to school as a system. It's a great system, let me tell you. And they did the DARE program very briefly for me and my students back in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades around that time period. And that's good they do it there to start early, but you really have to keep going. And we need to partner with our police force, and we have to partner with places like Wheeler Clinic, and we have to partner with rehabilitated individuals, the police and them, to have classes here at the school, because this is a problem. I was on Duane Lane, and a concerned mother told me you have to speak up and tell somebody that 3 people died on that one road. So I just want to make you alert that that's the biggest problem in our town besides our taxes.
Okay, last one, right here.
My name's Ernie Woolman. I live at 50 Covey Road. I would like to address this question to Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Salsoda and Jimmy Chard, because you're on the board now with him. What have you done in the last 2 years for the residents of Burlington in regard to the opening of Clearbrook Road? This road was previously given away and closed by one of our previous first selectmen without the public input. As first selectman, you have the power to open that road overnight with the documentation that is right in the town hall records. If you are re-elected, what are your plans for moving this situation forward in getting this road open for the residents of the town of Burlington?
Okay, thanks, Ernie. So, Ernie had brought to my office documentation that he had in his possession related to Clearbrook Road. This is located at the end of Foot Road. One of its openings is Foot Road, and as it goes into Hotchkiss, and also on the other end with Barnes Hill Road. And this used to be a road, this is a walkway that's owned by the MDC. And there was agreements made a long time ago as to what was going to happen with Clearbrook Road. It was closed down. The neighborhoods behind it were closed down because of the Neepog Reservoir, the creation of that by the MDC. And as we were, it's been looked at through the years. We took a close look at it, and there were some defects that happened in terms of the process decades ago by the Board of Selectmen, in which agreements were not followed up on, and I know that upsets Ernie a lot about this, but we looked at that. I think the approach right now is we took a litigation type approach to seeing what could be done with MDC. I've taken another approach, and that is to work with the folks at MDC to try to open this up in a partnership. Let's work together. Enough years have gone by that there's an opportunity to open this up. They told me that they had closed it during when we had the September 11th attacks, because they were afraid that terrorists were going to put something into our water system. So there's been a lot of excuses over the year, a lot of things that have happened, but I think we're on a better track right now. And they have opened it up. People can walk up and down Clearbrook Road. The question is can we open it up for any automobile traffic?
Okay, Carl, and then
Yeah,
Jim, and then we'll have the final.
I would echo what Ted has said. We've had some discussions on the Board of Selectmen about MDC. In fact, I would like to see Burlington be able to use MDC, the waterways, even have a town beach like New Hartford has, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards. I think there's been real trepidation on MDC's part, especially after that person was hurt in West Hartford. They really don't want anybody on their land, and we've been taking small steps to try to resolve that, so at least we could use that a road as passive recreation, etc. So we're working on it.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, I would echo what Ted said and what Carl said. I go back far enough to know that we looked into this when I was in my early tenure on the board from a legal standpoint. The roadblocks then were the documentation, the documents that you would need in order to effectively go through the court system to gain access to that road. And I would agree with Ted Schaefer, we've made more inroads in that regard by moving away from the litigation and the threat of litigation and trying to open up a dialogue with MDC. I'm not certain, I can't promise that there'll ever be vehicular traffic there, but we're making inroads otherwise. When you threaten litigation or consider litigation, you really have to weigh the costs and the possible outcome. And I think
not where the MDC ended with their road. They ended their road back 1,000 feet on the corner where there used to be a white gate. Now, that road is closed illegally here in town. That road was closed where the gate is. There's 1,000 feet there of town road, and that is closed. And you can't close a road in the town of Burlington unless you have a town meeting. Am I right? Well, that was all done. And then down on the other end, Clearbrook Road goes all the way to the Ford Road intersection with Clara Hill Road. So you got 1,000 feet down there. And you got the pump house on the left side of the road coming up that says 150 number, 150 Barnes Hill Road. Who gave New Britain the authority to put 150 Barnes Hill Road on that? Barnes Hill Road ends at the intersection up there where the MDC just got through paving, making it all real nice. I mean, I don't think that the board here knows anything about what's going on down there, what the MDC has done.
Well, everybody's had a chance to comment, and I think in the 2-minute recap that each candidate will have, they can address that point if they so desire. So each one has 2 minutes. Ted, we'll start with you.
Right. So I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to serve Burlington over the last 6 years. And if reelected, I'm prepared to lead us through any challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I have developed valuable regional working relationships with our peer towns in the Farmington Valley, the Northwest Corner, and the Bristol-Southington-Plainville corridor, which will greatly benefit the community moving forward. I'm currently on the Board of Directors for Northwest Connecticut Economic Development, the Bristol Hospital Development Board, and a member of the statewide Sustainable Connecticut Board of Directors. I will use all these positions to help Burlington in any way that I can. I've utilized my ability to connect with others and collaborated in these types of organizations, which has produced a new regional Veterans Strong Center for Burlington, based in Bristol, the creation of Safe Harbor Teen Activity Center in Burlington, a strengthening of our public safety operations, and the increase in economic development in such areas, as I mentioned earlier, restaurants and small business expansions. One thing I'd like to add, coming here tonight, listening to your comments, I think we should all get back together at some point and have an education forum. I think it's on our minds. I think it's really important. I think it's a value that we all have, and we need to start to talk about this more. So without consulting with my library staff, I think we should have these type of meetings in our new 100-seat expansion in the library, the meeting room. And I think we should get together until we can kind of figure this out. And the other thing I wanted to mention from tonight is the opioid use. I sit on the Region 10 Coalition for alcohol awareness and drug awareness, and we do that in partnership with McLean Foundation, and the stories are heartbreaking. And you are correct, there is issues, and I hope us as community members and families can work together on that.
David Bereza.
Thank you, everybody. You have the choice to elect a West Hartford native or a Burlington native who has attended the regional school system here, who knows the insides and outs of this town. We will create a vibrant business community while balancing a healthy fiscal policy, regardless of this current state of affairs at our capital. For the past 6 years, Burlington has stayed stagnant with zero business growth, and this will not lend to relieving our tax burden. We can no longer rely on sluggish state-level Democrats, yet we must solve our problems together here as a town. We must build a financially stable town that will be reliant on its own, not the state of Connecticut. We will build our business community and stop outsourcing all of our business opportunities to neighboring towns. We'll focus on creating a greater sense of community through hosting seasonal festivals and cultural fairs and creating the most beautiful town center in the Northwest Hills. We'll unite and put Burlington first and always first and implement the most appropriate and effective policies, not based on any specific party's agenda, but on the foundation of the most important issues of our citizens. Our town has been stagnant and lethargic for 6 years, and before you pull the lever, please review the facts. Before you vote, you can make a difference between Burlington staying the way it is. Together, we will move forward out of lethargic stagnation and move our town into absolute success, progress, and prosperity. I ask Democrats, Republicans, and Independents for your vote on November 7th to serve as your next selectman. And together, we will make Burlington bolder, brighter, and better than ever before. May God bless America, and may God bless our beautiful and amazing town. Thank you.
David Gostigian.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight and for your questions. I think this was a great night. Excuse me. As Mr. Chard said, this is the type of civic involvement that we really need, and it really helps Burlington thrive. The more we have a discussion, I think the more we can improve the town. And with respect to the opioid question, thank you very much for that question and for speaking up. And I don't know the solution to that question. I don't think any one person can say they do. I think we need to collaborate. And again, please come to more meetings, get involved in the town. And on the ordinance committee, that's one of the things I enjoyed was talking to the people who live in Burlington, hearing their concerns, hearing what you wanted to see, and helping to serve you. Obviously, one of the major issues tonight was Region 10 and their budget. And I think they understand the gravity of the situation and realize that the town is not going to continue approving a 3% hike in each referendum, which is why we need to collaborate with the Board of Education and the Board of Finance. As a parent and a taxpayer, both are concerning to me. I want to find that proper balance between town services and Region 10's budget. I think it's time to collaborate, excuse me, and I'm ready to do that on the Board of Selectmen. I'm more concerned with character than party affiliation, and I pride myself on being respectful to others and considering their ideas carefully. I think we should all ask ourselves who you want representing you and your families on the Board of Selectmen in regards to these issues. I will listen to you and work hard with the other selectmen to make this amazing town even better. Thanks for your support on November 7th.
Doug DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Allow me, if I could, to speak from like the 30,000-foot level. I truly believe that there is a chasm between management and leadership. I think it is inarguable that our state has been mismanaged for many, many years. No one buys our bonds. Businesses are leaving. Educated people are leaving the state for better, brighter futures. We are the second highest tax state in the union. It's a beautiful state, but it's mismanaged. One thing that comes before the mismanagement is stagnation. And Burlington, yes, has been blessed so far with a good bond rating, but if we don't correct some of these problems, and we haven't corrected them in 6 to 8 years in the past, we need to, instead of managing our stagnation, we need to select people that are willing to lead Burlington to a better place, a more fiscally sound place, while maintaining all the things that we all have mentioned tonight and love about this town. Thank you.
Carl Salcedo.
On developing civic courage, last spring one of my students, a Bosnian refugee whose family subsisted on potatoes for 6 years, now an American citizen, said something to me that resounds to this day. I casually mentioned in class I had to be out that night at a Board of Selectmen meeting. I explained the details and she pointedly asked, "You get paid to do this?" I replied, "I do not." She responded, "Then why would you do this for no pay?" I'm not new to volunteerism. Began as a Peace Corps volunteer in the late 60s. After moving to Burlington, I continued in volunteer roles. Beth and I hosted over 20 international guests throughout the International 4-H program. I conducted garden tours of our yard as fundraisers for different nonprofits, including the annual Garden Conservancy's Open Day program. I increased my involvement the past 15 years as chairman of the Conservation Commission, president of the Burlington Historical Society, founding charter member of the thriving Burlington Garden Club, member of the Village Planning Committee, and the past 4 years held an elected seat on the Board of Selectmen. My answer to that student that asked me that question that day was, I want to contribute my towns, to make the place I live in a better place. In so doing, I was sowing the seeds of a civic courage ethic that has taken me a lifetime to develop. A conviction about oneself, the compassion to see the needs of others, helping them on their journey to make the place where they reside a better place too. If we work on common cause together, so much more can be accomplished. I still think of that Bosnian American student, now living the American dream. From time to time, I picture her young face exuding the endless multiplicities of possibilities for the future. Perhaps my student learned something from me, that it takes hard work, personal conviction, and citizen involvement to hold a town, a state, and a nation together. It happens through civic courage. As another small-town boy, Garrison Keeler, would say, that's news from Burlington, where all the women are strong, all the men are good-looking, and all the children are above average. Thank you.
Tom Zabel.
In closing, I would like to thank everybody for the spirited debate on the issues which are facing our town. I hope that we have provided the audience with information they need to make an informed decision as they go to the polls and select the individuals who will be guiding the direction of our community. The differences in approaches delineated this evening define who we are as individuals and how we will resolve the difficult choices that face us all. The board should always put the town and its residents first. The decisions made should always be the best compromise between the needs and desires of the community and as a town as a whole. Only then, I believe, that we have done our best to serve the overall community in a fair and balanced governance. I believe that there, as hopefully an elected official of the town, since my family has served the town from generations, as a matter of fact. My father was an assessor. My brother worked on various boards and commissions. My sister-in-law was a town clerk, a select board, and the first selectman of this town, during her tenure, a lot of good things got accomplished. Myself, I've been on various boards, and my niece now, luckily, even though she is running, she's already elected to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So from a family standpoint, we have always felt a strong responsibility to provide our services and help guide the town and maintain the rural feel and help the town to expand. Thank you.
Jim Chard.
I too would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This was invaluable, a great learning process. As many years as I've been in this is always a wonderful thing to get a group of people and get questions and get dialogue flowing. As candidates, it's a wonderful opportunity to connect with you. I hope that your experience this evening has been helpful as you prepare to go to the polls on November 7th. I've been fortunate to grow up in Burlington, raise my family here, and maintain a business here. I think this provides me with a unique set of qualifications to continue to help shape the future of our town. I have promised in the past that I will always be accessible. I'll always listen to your point of view, whether you agree or disagree. I understand the level of commitment necessary to represent your interests. I hope you will trust me with your vote once again. In closing, I want to acknowledge and thank all my fellow volunteers and town staff that have worked with me over the years. Our town is fortunate to have very talented and dedicated volunteers and staff filling very critical roles. Lastly, I would like to thank my wife and family for their support all these years. I hope to see you on November 7th when I'm waving, and thank you very much and have a good evening.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the candidates. Thank you for Tom for taking time out of your schedule to be here. He's got a great voice, so it's nice to hear him. And thank you, Diana, for taking time so accurately. That was good. Thank you, people, for giving us a lively discussion and learning some things about the town. I appreciate you all coming out. I also want to thank Nutmeg TV and Kevin Mullen for helping me with the microphones. And so we'll see you all on November 7th. Your right to vote. Thank you.